Welcome to another episode of the Boss Experience podcast. My name is Michele Davis, and I'm your host. And I'm so excited to be here with LaQuita Monley, who is my special guest for today. And today's topic is the importance of identity. And if you're seeing LaQuita for the first time, she's an entrepreneur, she's a speaker, she's an author, and she's a fellow podcaster. So I'm super excited for her to share her expertise and her input on what it means to have your own identity and the importance of it when you're building a business. So anyone that's been following me for any length of time knows that, entrepreneurship is a second career for me. So coming from a career and coming into entrepreneurship, I had no idea who I was. And, I was so kind of completely engrossed in my career. I didn't know who I was as a person. I was whatever job title I held. So, you can easily lose your identity, and that's just your job. When you add on layers like mom, wife, and all those other titles that we get throughout our life, it gets even more complicated. And sometimes you got to navigate yourself out of everything to kind of ask yourself and get to know yourself and ask yourself, who am I? What do I like? Um, and that carries into entrepreneurship because what tends to happen is a lot of entrepreneurs tend to look at social media to define who they are, or look to the internet to define who they are. And they dismiss all of the wonderful qualities and all of the things that are unique and special about themselves. So we're going to, talk about all of that today. And so the first thing I'd like LaQuita to do is to introduce yourself and have a few questions for you. But yeah, let's talk about the identity crisis our fellow female entrepreneurs are having.
Well, I have a feeling this is going to be a great conversation, but thank you so
Absolutely.
much for having me on as a guest, Michele. I've been looking forward to this conversation. And so I'm, just really super excited to be here. But for me, I'll boil myself down to three, maybe four things that, because these are the positions that have the most value to me. And that's my position as wife, mom, and grandmother, and put a special emphasis on being a grandmother. Absolutely the best thing that I have done in my life to date. Amen. So those,
Is that because you get to give your kids back, the grandkids back? No,
yeah,
I'm just kidding. I'm
yes.
just kidding.
They're returnable. They're cute. They're cuddly. Sometimes they smell bad, but they are returnable. But those, it took me a long time in my life journey to value who I was as a wife and a mom. And we'll talk about that hopefully a little bit in the conversation. So now that I completely understand my role and value that role as wife and mom, by the time I became a grandmother, I was excited and elated about it. Now, do I wear a lot of different hats? Most women do. Most of us, whether we're mothers or not, we wear so many different hats in our life, and the other hats are meaningful. But the things that add the most value to me are wife, mom, and grandmother. Yes, I'm a podcaster, love it. I write books, I'm an author, love it. Had an opportunity, I'm a minister of the gospel. I've had an opportunity to preach and teach God's word around the world. Love that. As an entrepreneur, being a speaker, coach, and trainer, and getting that certification through the John Maxwell team. Absolutely love that experience. Love what I do with my clients. But at the end of the day, it is my belief that all of these things that people find wonderful and accolades and want you to write out in all these resumes and bios, I wouldn't have accomplished those things, or I wouldn't be as good at those things as I am if I had not truly discovered who I was and learn to value my role as wife, mom, and now as a granny. Like, that's the best thing ever.
That's so awesome. And, there's so many layers to us. And I really think when you think about, that how important it is to understand who you are, especially when you're starting a business, because it's so easy to kind of hop into the wrong thing. And the
Yes,
thing you don't want to do is to create another job for yourself. You
correct.
want to create a business that you can grow and scale to the point where it doesn't require your presence in every single aspect of it
Mhm.
to operate. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so what is behind you? What do you think is behind the identity crisis for some of our fellow female entrepreneurs?
And honestly, I think what is behind the identity crisis for humans in general is other humans. I mean, we have a tendency, and what I mean by that is, for example, for us as women and as entrepreneurs, just it doesn't matter your race, your ethnicity, your creed, your religion, your anything. There are just unspoken and expectations according to gender that people have for one another. And whether they're forced upon you, gently urged upon you, something about our culture, um, even though we're a lot better now than where you used to be, there's still those unspoken things that we try to uh, achieve, and we want to be the very best at what we're perceived to supposed to be doing, right? And when we mix that in, and not knowing who we are and believing that achieving those things that the culture has deemed what success should look like or what your identity is, you never know your identity because you never realize you need to figure it out.
True. Yeah.
You know, it's that you said something really key in the opening. Like, most people, when we say, okay, what do I want to be when I grow up? You make that determination, you work hard, and you move in that direction. Sometimes we marry and not change our mind about what we want. But whatever we end up adulting and doing as a career or even as an entrepreneurial endeavor, we dive so far off in it that it becomes our identity.
Hmm.
And we eventually hit that proverbial brick wall. And you're left saying, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? I could be making 6, 7, 8 figures, and I'm just unhappy and I don't know why. And at the bottom of everything is, who are you? And what have you been called to do? What type of impact have you been created to land in this planet? What is your purpose? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't really get the answers to that question or don't make it to a space in life where they ask it. And the third most dangerous thing is they do get to the space in life and they ask it, but because of their surroundings and their environment, when they ask that question, they don't get positive response. So they don't seek out the solution because they're made to feel like, are you crazy? What do you mean? You're fine. What do you mean you don't know who you are? Like, they don't get the support that they need to
Hmm.
take that life journey to self-discovery. And for me, for my clients, and it's my philosophy is everything in our life hinges on our identity. Who we are determines our core values. Those core values should help us to determine what it is that we're doing both professionally and personally. That brings forth a great deal of fulfillment. And it is the motivator and it's your why. In the entrepreneurial spaces, we always talk about, hey, what's your why? What's your why? But how
Hmm.
can that person give you that true why if they don't know who they are?
Right. And that why what they say, it needs to go 7 layers deep. It just can't be
Mhm.
this
Can be
surface why.
surface, right?
Yeah. Because that's
And
not going to sustain you.
it's not going to sustain you, right? And even when your why is your family, that's good, but why? The
Mhm.
question is still why. You know, sometimes it's entrepreneurs and even as career professionals. You have career professionals that are going to hear this, and we've been in both spaces, and we're pursuing the epitome of our career. We're trying to be the best of the best to provide for our family, but the very reason our why, we're taken away from them. You're not present, you're not available because you're busy trying to build for them. And one day you wake up and you realize that They've been realized it. And now you got to figure out how to fix that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And they may or may not give you permission to do that. So, and that happens again, it goes back to my identity. When I understand who I am and the value that I bring to any situation, then I can prioritize properly the things that bring value to my life, which is why, yes, I send my resume to people, my bio, and all of that's great and it sounds good, but I'm three things. I am a wife, I'm a mom, and I'm the most amazing grandmother to my favorite little people. And that's the thing that brings me value. And, I know that it goes against a lot of feminist beliefs. And I'm okay with that because I understand who I am. I understand that at the end of the day, if LaQuita was not a wife, if LaQuita was not a mom, and if LaQuita was not a grandmother, the thing that God has called me to do to land an impact in the lives of the people that I reach, I am still she. She is who I am. But those positions enhance me in what I do. So you could call me that. And I'm okay with that gender role because I understand that it doesn't take anything away from me, but it adds value to me.
And one important thing about that too is that is what you're called to do, and that is what aligns with you. And I
Right.
think we get caught up in looking at, all of the stimuli that we get, just being online. And
Yeah.
we try and adapt
Mm-hmm.
to what we think we're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we're discounting, we're disregarding,
Mm-hmm.
and we're ignoring our own unique traits and qualities and the
Mm-hmm.
things that make us happy. Because
Yes.
when you talk about entrepreneurship, you're talking about really tapping into your skills. Because at the end of the day, no matter
Yeah.
what you see online,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have the skills to really uh, carry that business through, to get
Mm-hmm.
it to the point of profitability, to do all that's required to run that business, to build that business, to grow that business, it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to work. And
Absolutely.
I think that's when so many people get that so clouded in their brain. They're looking at outside of themselves, and they're looking at, like, that's who I want to be like. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
want, and that's what I want to do.
Yes.
You don't have those skills.
Right.
Or you may not have those skills,
Yeah.
and it starts with you, and it's really about developing you.
Mm-hmm.
And what point in your life did you kind of discover that in yourself?
I was 25 and I had a triggering moment.
Mm.
And it was so eye-opening. So prior to that, I did realize that I was depressed and I had been in counseling,
Mm-hmm.
which was a major thing, right? It was a really major thing for me. I'm an African American woman from the Deep South, strict Baptist household. Black people don't go to no therapist. Like, what are you talking about? And so the energy that it took, thank God for my husband's support, for me to seek out that counseling was great. And then we moved because of his career. Just as things were going really good and I was getting some headway, we had to move because the Army says, hey, you got to go to a new duty station. And so because I felt like I was good, I didn't immediately seek out connecting with a therapist in my new local area.
Mm-hmm.
And what we ended up doing was coming back to Texas where my mother lived. And so again, remember, I was raised in a strictly Christian household. And so there was a lot of things going on in my life and in my marriage that I was unhappy with. And I was at the place of walking away.
Mm.
So, as you know, I'm talking to my parents and everybody, and my husband's talking to his folks, and everybody's like, well, just go to church. Just go to church. And we're thinking, that did not fix anything. But just realized like that did not fix anything. But
Yeah.
but at that time, we were living with my mom because we were trying to buy a house. And so you go because you don't want to hear that, right? Like we go, and I'm coming out of service this on this particular occasion, and one of a delightful soul. She is a delight. I have to say that she is a delight. She didn't mean any harm. And she goes, "Hey, Sister Kim's daughter." She was trying to get my attention. I snapped. And afterwards, I was on my way home. She was very apologetic. I to this day, I don't even know. Well, if she's read my book, she now knows like why I did that. But I didn't ever come back and give her any clarity on why I did that. But she was very apologetic and had probably no clue why she was apologizing and what she did to make me so angry.
Mm.
But it was in that moment that I was upset because she didn't call me by my name. And all of these floods of emotions came in because in every aspect of my life at that point, because I did not value. As a matter of fact, and not only did I not value it, I belittled it, my role as a wife and a mom.
Mm.
So anybody that has any affiliation with the military, the way that it's set up, the dependents, we're not even called spouses, we're called dependents. The dependents are recognized by our sponsor, which is your service member, whether it's the man or the woman, it doesn't matter in the marriage, you're a dependent. So everywhere in my life, I did not have an identity. So I'm here, I'm at church. The least you could do is call me by my name. You know, I go to the school with my kids. I'm Daryl, Devontae, Denise, David, or Marquez's mom, or Mrs. Monley. It's still never my first name, right? I'm always attached to someone else. And I did not realize how much that had been weighing a sister down until that moment. And on the way home, I started to evaluate that. And over the next couple of weeks, I just really thought about it and was like, wow, you need some help. Like, what did you do? I was so embarrassed every time I would go to church after the end to see this lady because I went off on her. But that started my journey. Her calling me Sister Kim's daughter. My mom is a delight. The lady didn't mean any harm, but my mother is Kim. I'm LaQuita. And yes, I am her daughter, but I am LaQuita. Like, at least you could have called me Miss Sister Monley or something. You just called me by my mother's name. So that started a journey of self-discovery. I had realized that I needed to find myself, you know, cliche. I needed to find myself. And at that point, my husband was going to the initial invasion of Baghdad. He was rolling out. And so I had a year to figure this thing out, to figure out who I am, what I'm doing, whether or not I wanted to remain Mrs. Monley. And, you know, I had a lot to work out in that year. And by God's grace, I did. I made some good headway, but it took a lot of work. It took a lot of work. And it helped me to identify things that I had been doing up until that point, simply to satisfy other people's expectations of me. And even if they did not verbalize it, it was what I thought they wanted or what I thought I should have been doing. Things that I've been doing in support of my husband's career that it was not written in any Army regulation anywhere, but I just knew it was things that I needed to do and how I needed to show up so that he could get the promotion that he needed to get and so that I can get the little, you know, recognitions and awards and certificates that look good so that when he was getting these promotions that I would be the good wife fit. And the same thing was happening for me with my children. But if you ask me, hey, LaQuita, what did you like? You know, what do you do? What's your hobby? What do you like doing in your spare time? My only point of reference was things that I liked in high school. Because as an adult, I had no point of reference because till that point in my life, everything about what I did was to satisfy a role that I was playing or what I was expected to do, but never taking an exploratory journey to figure me out. And that started my role to healing and deliverance and self-discovery. And what I discovered about me was I love people. I love people. I love to talk. I love to be a blessing to people. I love to build people. But likewise, I run the risk of doing all of those things to my own detriment by not allowing people to do the same to me. So it's that shaped me. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur during that time. I bought my first property as a real estate investor, but it shifted my why. My why grew. The originally wanting to become an entrepreneur is because we were broke. We didn't have the proverbial pot or window, okay? And somebody's infomercial said
that you could get rich if you do this.
Yes, and you could do it with no money down and no credit. And I'm like, oh, that fits me. Any of those things. Let me do this.
Now, you mentioned a few things because I think people need to think like, when I think about you being an army wife, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
that I think kind of fed into the depression too, because
Absolutely.
you're moving from place to place. You don't know anyone. You're always the new person. And then at the drop of a dime, you're moving again. And, when you think about like, taking that time to really get to know yourself in that self-discovery period. And I think you and I have talked offline, I always say if I did not focus on entrepreneurship, I don't think I would have delved as deeply as I have in self-development. And you started early, and it took that moment, with the woman in the church parking lot. You're like, because people in pain hurt people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hurting people
And
hurt other people.
yeah, you were in pain, you were hurting, and she just came along at the wrong time. It wasn't anything
Oh,
personal.
baby. Like,
so so let's talk about that for a minute. So, because a lot of people skip that inner work. They think I just want to make money. What do you mean I got to develop myself? Like, what do I need to develop myself for? And they think I just want to make money. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't need to develop anything. So I have a two-part question. One is, what would you say to that statement? I don't need to develop anything. And the other part is, what do you think is the key? What was the key factor in your own healing journey when you think about where you were then and whether or not you had the potential to be the entrepreneur that you are today, had you not done any of that work?
Wow. So to a person that thinks they don't need development, personal development, I would tell them you're wrong. Like studies have shown, pick one. It doesn't matter, like anything. So who we are as a person pours over into the things that we do. You made a really good example. Hurting people hurt other people. I can possess an amazing skill set at what I do as, say, an accountant. But now I want to start my own CPA firm, or I want to become a partner in the firm that I'm in. I'm an amazing accountant, but in order to become a partner in the firm that I am in, because my eye is I'm going to start my own one day, that means I have to know how to work with people. But because I don't know who I am and I'm not working on personal development, I've just been working on skill set development, I lack a key component of emotional intelligence. And I cannot figure out why people just don't want to work with me or for me. Even though I'm the smartest person on this team, I am the best accountant on this team, hands down. Nobody refutes that. It's because you lack personal development. And emotional intelligence is just one piece of that. Why are you this way? You don't know. And because you've been you your whole life, you just learn how to roll with it. You may not even be happy with you, but you become accustomed and you know how to manage it. Even though you're not happy, looking into that unknown, you can deem it as unnecessary or scary, but you don't want to go there. And so that hinders your ability to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. But because you are the best accountant, you raise up the ranks. But you find yourself in some of those other goals and dreams that you have on a personal level, or even wanting that camaraderie around you on your team and from your fellow colleagues. And if you are the one that owns the business, Why is it that nobody, leaves you the birthday card? And these are maybe some drastic examples, but just an example, right? You want to know how to build your team. You want to know how to cultivate them and get to know them and communicate with them. You want to provide a culture where they feel safe and can grow. Well, that's going to require you to grow on a deeply personal level and address some things within yourself that need to be addressed so that now I can have the perception I need to be able to recognize it in other people, or even if it says, if I can't recognize it or recognize the fact that these are some things I might need to do to implement to build my team. Personal development should be woven into every single thing we do as entrepreneurs, as leaders. We have a personal responsibility to be the very best versions of ourselves so that we can show up the way that we need to show up, yes, in our personal life, but also in our professional life. We always need to be able to show up the way we need to be and be strong enough in your own identity that even in your points of vulnerability, you're okay with the transparency because you can use it as a teaching moment. But when I lack personal development, things like that, I won't do. I won't even consider. I'll consider it a weakness.
Yeah. And you have people that are walking around with so much in them. They're holding on to so much. They're holding on to, the fear. They're holding on, to things that everything that and everyone that hurt them. They're holding on to like all this baggage. And they're walking around like, how come I can't be successful? How come this isn't working out for me? How come, everybody leaves me? And they're not understanding that they need to look within and they need to do the work. So, you definitely couldn't have been the same entrepreneur you are today had you not done that inner work.
No.
Yeah. Tell us about your book. Like, tell us about this book.
So thank you for asking. So my book is called Redefining Success, 8 Tools that I've used to develop a growth mindset. And with the book, the basis of the book is, again, the power of identity. Everything in our life that we do personally and professionally hinges on our knowledge of our identity and our acceptance of it. Like, this is who I am. And I love me 1000%. And how that begins to flow through and impact other areas of our life. And I share 8 tools, things that I've learned across my life's journey that help me to begin to develop a growth mindset and to maintain a growth mindset. And the book is written not just for entrepreneurs, be honest. Entrepreneurs, yay, get the book, it'll bless your life.
But even if you're not, you're still going to be blessed.
You're still going to be blessed because, honestly, I know, probably you've seen it too in your practice, that a lot of people who seek out entrepreneurship actually have no identity and they're just seeking something to give validation. And I've had a lot of people come to me and we're working through, and by session 3, they realize I really did not want to, I don't want to do this. But it was, I just need to prove my worth and my value and show I can be successful. Well, who told you that that's what success means? When I understand my identity, then I define what success means to me, not other people. And I'm, again, 1000% okay with my definition of success. And I understand that as I grow, my definition of success grows and changes and shifts with me. But it's mine. I have the right to do that. And I'm unapologetic about it. And that's really like what I want the reader to take away from that book.
So how long did it take you to write the book?
Oh, Father God. I first got the idea to write the book in 2010, but I had a lot of life to live still. Like, you get the idea to write the book and I break out the laptop and one evening and I'm sitting there and I'm typing and I'm writing, and it kind of just went, and I realized along the way that my story was still in the making.
So it wasn't the time.
It wasn't the time. I knew that I needed to, but it wasn't the time. And my story was still in the making because I was still a hurt person.
Mm.
I still had some unresolved issues, some unmet needs.
I was just going to say, we have to applaud ourselves because when you do that inner work, it takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
And I don't think we, when we take the time and we go through whatever it is that does it for us, for some people it may be church, for others it may be, therapy, or, or when we take that time to really and truly develop ourselves, it takes a lot of
Mhm.
courage because number one, we have to admit that we're broke, that not that we're broken, but that we need help. We just need help.
Help.
And instead, we think, oh, I'm not broke. I'm strong. I can
Mhm.
overcome. I can do this. But if you don't do the inner work, you
Yeah.
won't be able to achieve the success that you want. Not in a
That you
way
were
that's
looking
going to
for.
help you to continue to grow and build.
Absolutely. And you said something really good there. Like for me, the foundation I would say for me is my faith. Now, when all of this started happening, I wasn't a strong believer. I grew up in church. That's where I was. I grew up in church. That's the space in my life that I was at. And in none of those stories and none of that stuff made any sense to me. And it was not improving my situation. I just did not want to be disrespectful to my parents or my grandparents or my in-laws who kept giving me this advice that I felt like was worthless advice. Um, but after that point of self-discovery for me, one of the next steps for me was realizing that some things from my past as it related to church also hurt me.
Mm,
I could not reconcile the God of the scripture and these people who hurt me. So that was an additional piece. And so when I say my faith, because at that point, I had to learn who Jesus was for me. And it included therapy because the things that were broken within LaQuita, Jesus didn't do it. So let me reconcile that. And then, well, let me discover who Jesus is on another point. Let me discover who Jesus is for myself because I did consider myself a spiritual person. I just did not understand why, you're saying one thing and people were doing another. That really bothered me on
mm,
another hand. And so when I was able to get the help, and I'm a very big advocate of mental health as African American women, as women in general, the same way we go get our annuals done, that's the way I feel that we should do with mental health. It should be a check in and a check up just to keep a pulse check because we carry so much to keep a
absolutely.
pulse check on us to keep us healthy inside and out. And so my spiritual journey was another component of that for me. And once I realized, okay, this is the God of the Bible, and this is what I mean to him, and that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Like there is no flaw in me. He sees his image in me. That did amazing things for my self-esteem. It
Mm,
did absolutely amazing things for my self-esteem because he didn't hurt me. People might have hurt me, but he didn't hurt me. And so what I was able to do and how I was able to grow from there, the principles that I was then able to pull from the scripture and begin to implement it in my life. And then, with the reading and the therapy that was happening and that self-discovery journey, the work became something that I craved. Yes, it was still hard, but it was very intentional and purposeful all at the same time. It's like, okay, this is what I know I'm going to do today. This is how I'm going to set my day. This is how I'm going to set my journey. I was beginning that journey of healing by bringing those components together in my life. And where I was focused on trying to get LaQuita together, those other broken aspects of my life, it was like one day I realized, oh, they're not broke no more.
mm.
Check that out. Like.
And you talk about that in the book, right?
I
Because
do.
yeah, you talk about like, what was behind your whole reaction to this person not even recognizing your identity and
Yes.
who you are as a person. And all of that is what leads to success is being able to have that self-growth. So
Yes.
I love the direction that you took and just really highlighting that is, yes, things are about business,
Mhm.
but life is about, there's things that are about life first, and everything starts with who you are as a
Life.
person, and it starts with life,
Mhm.
and then the business comes
Yes,
after. So,
absolutely.
what if people want to buy the book? Let's start there. Where do they find it?
The book can be found on Amazon, as well as on my website. If you want an author signed copy, you can order it on my website, and I'd be happy to ship you as many copies as you order. And you can also, as I said, buy it on Amazon. The paperback version or the ebook version are available on Amazon.
So I'm going to have you speak out your website name for people that are here listening to the audio only, and then I'm going to
Okay.
have you speak out repeat the name of the book as well.
All right. My website name is LaQuitaMonley.com, and that's www.LaQuitaMonley.com. That's LaQuitaMonley.com. And the name of my book is Redefining Success: 8 Tools That I Use to Develop a Growth Mindset. I know that's a lot of title. So if you want to make it very easy when you go to Amazon, in the search engine, just put my name, put in LaQuita Monley, and my podcast will pop up as well as my book will pop up.
Awesome. And so, what are some, as we close out this particular episode, when let's, I want you to give some final words, and I want you to kind of sum it up in kind of a simple phrase for people, something for them to take away, because we covered a lot in this episode. It was a very, I think, a very good, heartfelt discussion about what it means to have identity and how important it is. So when you think about what it means to be the boss experience, or what the boss experience means, what does it mean to you?
What the boss experience means to me is my ability to control my life, meaning when I am living my life according to the boss experience, the things that I prioritize and put value on, I'm able to make those front and center, and everything else that I do have to work around it. It's having that elusive work-life balance where my work has to work around my personal life instead of my personal life having to work around my work. That's the boss experience where what I value comes first.
Well
And
said.
yes.
Because we live our lives like our personal life is secondary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the way society is
That's the way
encouraged,
society encourages us to be.
and we wonder why we've fallen apart.
Yeah. And that's from entrepreneurship to C-suite individual. Very few companies encourage family first. It may be in their ethos, but that's not what you get when you're working there. It may be in their mission and their vision, but that's not what's encouraged when you get there. But that is the true boss experience.
Awesome. So I just want to thank you so much, LaQuita. We've been trying to make this happen for the longest. I'm so happy that we finally did. And I just want to thank you for your contribution to my audience today. And thank
Thank you so
you.
much for having me. It's definitely been a pleasure. We've been trying to make this happen for a while, and I was like, oh my word, it will happen today. And I just absolutely appreciate the opportunity to come and to speak to your audience. And if I can say one more thing, if I could,
Absolutely.
I now realize that everyone does not share my same faith system, and that's wonderful, right? Okay, that's your life decision. But my book is about principles. So there's a saying that I grew up with saying, chew the meat and throw away the bones. No matter what you believe or don't believe, we can all agree on this one thing: principles work.
Mhm.
And that's what those tools are: principles. If we put principles to work and consistently and diligently, those principles will produce for us the things that we desire. So that's what I would say to someone that says, you know what, this is a great conversation y'all had, but I don't believe in none of that. Okay. But we believe in principles, and
Mhm.
principles do work. So if you are a person of principle, I think that not only will you find value in my book, but there are tons of other books and podcasts and the principles that Michele gives with every episode that help you grow and develop personally and professionally.
Awesome. Speaking of podcasts, tell them where they can find your podcast as well.
LaQuita's Toolbox is the name of my podcast, and it can be found on all major podcasting platforms: Spotify, Google, iHeart, Amazon Music, Audible. It's now on SoundCloud. I was like, wow, okay.
All right.
It's now on SoundCloud and Stitcher and Deezer and all of these different things. So wherever you're listening and your favorite podcast listening platform is, type in LaQuita's Toolbox in the search engine and it'll pop up.
Excellent. With that being said, that concludes this episode. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And I can't wait for you to tune in to the next episode of the Boss Experience Podcast. Take care and be well.